Uh-oh.
No, all right, that's fine. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of Three Advisors and a Business. I'm Sidney Wayman, the moderator, here with BJ Handel and Deidre Mercedes. Hello, guys. How are you today?
Very good. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm doing pretty well.
Good.
I'm doing all right.
So
Deidre's just all right
what's on
today.
tap for today?
Yeah. So today we're going to talk about ClearTech Packaging Solutions, a company that does makes plastic packaging materials, custom containers, and other packaging components. Their primary customers are food producers, consumer goods companies, and private label brands. And interestingly enough, this company is generating about $7.5 million in revenues. But here's the crazy thing, but one company accounts for 55% of their total revenue. And I
Oh,
think three customers account for close to 70%. So they have tremendous level of concentration, customer concentration, sales concentration, which in and of itself exposes the company to some serious risk. Uh, like I said, they're doing 7.5 million, which is a decent amount of business to do. But like all of the businesses that we've been talking about, the owners all have a dream or desire of getting beyond the $10 million mark. And for a lot of small businesses, that is an extreme challenge. They all have a hard time getting to that point. This company is kind of close, but that high concentration could be a major risk because at 55%, that's more than half. If that one customer decides to leave, this company loses like more than $3 million in sales. But but anyway, the profile, the company's profile is fairly decent. Their margins are about 36%. Cost of goods, I mean, their gross margins are about 36%, which appears to be decent. The company's generating about 800,000 EBITDA, so they have what you might call decent cash flow. But if you look at it, the company has that high concentration, and that large customer is paying them in 70 days, I believe. But if you do a quick analysis of the company's balance sheet, you find that their receivable turnover is about 4.4 times a year, which converts to about 82 days. So their customers are paying them in 82 days, which is crazy. Um, their inventory turnover is about the same, about 83 days, and their payable turnover is about 68 days. So their financing, their cash to cash ratio is about 97 days, which is cash to cash that we're talking about. Is if you take the inventory turnover in days, the receivable turnover in days, right? That's the amount of time it takes for their customers, for the company to get cash from their sales to their customers, right? And you minus out the payable turnovers, which is the amount of time the company has or takes to pay their suppliers. Then that difference is the amount of time the company has to finance its operation. So for this company, it's about 97 days. And they do have a line of credit that they're using. I think the line of credit gives them about $800,000. They have a line of credit of about or $900,000. Yeah, that's their payables. Their line of credit is 800,000, so they have 900,000 in payables. Their line of credit is extended up to 800,000. So um, company's kind of tight now. I think this is a really interesting business to be in, and I think if what do you do? What are you guys saying to the owner of this company?
Well,
well,
go
uh,
ahead, please.
the first thing I'm going to say is that they they are definitely running. It sounds like they're running their company. It looks like they're running their company based on what their customer needs are, and not based on what their needs are. Because if you can sit around and wait for a company to give you your money for 82 days, um, consistently, that's got to be out of your plan. Which, and from a quality perspective, if you have a plan to, have your money within 30 days or 2 weeks, I don't think anybody wakes up in the morning and says, "Oh, I think we'll wait 82 days," and we'll put that in the contract. That's a non-conformance. But if you're completely waiting, if you're completely settled on this is your biggest company and you got this personal relationship after all these years, you're it's totally understandable that's why you're doing that. So that's just one of the things. Like you said, it's a very, very vulnerable spot to be in if you have that much money coming from one company. And the one thing that I'll say about that as a consultant, I've dealt with some big companies that question is on the questionnaire, to when they're deciding or interview if they'll bring me on. Do you have other clients? If my answer is no, because they don't want to hurt me, they will not bring me on.
Well, I don't agree with that strategy. That doesn't make
I,
sense
I'm telling you that
to me.
that's a reality though. I've been in those interviews.
No, I'm sure it is a reality. I'm just saying, I'm not going to deny someone. I'm not going to not give business to someone because I'm the only person giving business to that person. I mean, if we follow that kind of logic, no company would ever get started. It's like, who was it? Zeno, the philosopher, who said, you can never really cross a room because in order to cross the room, you have to take the first step. And because numbers are infinite, right, you'd never really take the first step because, you have to cross like the first foot, right? But to cross the first foot, you have to cross the first half foot. But to cross the first half foot, you'd have to cross the first half a foot, right? And it goes on ad infinitum. So you'd never be able to take the first step. But if you could take the first step, you'd never reach the other side because to reach the other side, you have to cross the first half of the room, and then once you do that. But anyway, if I don't know, I wouldn't follow that policy personally, because you know, I think you need your first customer. Now, if I were, what I would do if I were interviewing you, Mercedes, because I could see, um, that you're such a great person, a consultant, I would say, okay, look, I'm going to sign you up, but I'm also going to try to, help you find some other customers.
That is a very, very interesting take on it. However, I I un, I t- I didn't say it was a situation where they were saying, "Oh, we're not going to be your first customer." I think I said,
Yeah.
"Are we at this moment your only customer?" So I can be in business for 30 years and not have any more, and only have one customer. All I'm saying is that there are companies out there that, because they don't want a small business like myself to totally rely on them, they will not take the chance of hurting me in the long run, or hurting a business like me in the long run.
But wait a minute. So how would they hurt you?
Because if I got used to the relationship, got used to, I'm a small, one woman company. I got a couple of people coming in. Everybody is dependent on this one client. If they decide that they wouldn't cut the budget, or want to move on to, go in a different direction, now they have to look at it and go, we're going to hurt this company as opposed to helping this company. I'm not saying that you're wrong. And all I'm saying is that this is a reality in an interview process for small micro
Business.
businesses like myself. It is,
Right.
and I understand it because it's very true. If I go out when I was out there, what we would do is we would actually go into the company and we would be part of their infrastructure, making for 8 months to a year or maybe 6 months to a year. If we didn't have other clients and they decided to cut the budget, which that has happened, Opal would have been, that would have been it. That, we would have to go start all over again. It's a business decision. And also, like this company, I think if we actually talk to some of the executive management, I think that what I said was pretty, I think is probably true. If they have built their systems or allowed their systems probably a lot more flexibility because of this one company. And that flexibility is harmful to them.
I think that's really true. And I think what they need to be able to do is look at how they are going to change their sales focus so that they're working to get other clients and additional businesses, while at the same time they can take care of the person that they have. They need to continue with the business they have, but bring this down. And the only way, not bring it down by giving up the business, but getting additional business in other places. And their focus needs to get away from having one client represent so much business, because they don't have much of a negotiating position. And you can see by the amount you can see by what they're doing. They're giving them 75-day terms. It's costing them part of their gross profit. They're looking at, this is costly, but by the same token, we're afraid to get rid of it. We don't want to say we don't want to do the business. So I have a bad leverage situation. And the only way I can get past that is to start to build up additional clients so that I have better leverage when I talk to the person. Otherwise, it's not going to get a lot better. I think that they understand it and they want to do it. They just need to get some help to move in that direction.
And to your point, this is what I'm saying. They have limited operational flexibility because they have decided, I mean, what are they saying? We don't want to piss them off.
Yeah.
So we're going to make this concession. We're going to make that concession. Meanwhile, this company is this big company that is taking well advantage. What would happen if they don't even, and maybe they know, maybe they don't know, but what would happen if they said to these people, hey, listen, when we first started talking and we negotiated these terms, you said you would pay this much. This is our process. And we have to stick to that. Now, how do we now we've been doing this for who knows how long. It could be 5 years. It could be, I don't know how many years, but how do we partner and transition? How do I help you and how do you help me for us to transition to a better and meaningful system to get our money and you get your goods and you get your goods in time, and we get our money in time. Or how do we, where can we say, because this is what we're doing for all of our customers. And this is one of the things that I've said. If you put requirements in place and this is your requirement, why do you make a concession, for this one company or all of the companies?
I agree with you. But I think that they need to be in a position, they need to put themselves or build themselves a position where they can have that discussion and they're not terrified of losing it. Because
exactly.
As long as the other side knows that you really can't afford to lose us, they've got a tremendous amount of leverage.
Yeah, I mean, you don't send your boys in and break knees. You go in and you say, hey,
Yeah,
how can we work together?
right.
Listen, this supplier customer supplier relationship it goes both ways. And
Yeah.
you've got to be able to have those conversations and say, this is really hurting us. We need to, how can we do this? And listen, you know what? A transition like that, it could take 6 months, it could take 2 years, it could take 5 minutes.
Right.
Did they ask the question? Is it possible that they just have let it slip, let it slip, let it slip, let it slip, and never said, hey, we need our money like yesterday? Who knows? Maybe they'll get a check.
I agree, but they probably haven't said that. And I
Yeah.
agree. That makes a lot of sense.
So we've got communication problems. We've got system problems. We've got limited operational flexibility problems. And it's all around this. That's just one thing. But if you build your processes and you say, this is how we do business. This is how we do business. You're either going to do business with us like this or you're not. And if there needs to be some concessions that they need to be within reason. And 80, what did you say, 82 days, whatever it is,
Yeah.
it's not within reason, especially if they're hurting.
Well, we don't know that they're hurting. I mean, if you look at the numbers, they're not hurting. They're generating 800,000 EBITDA. Um, so, I don't know that we can say that they're hurting necessarily. From my perspective, I agree with some of the things you guys are saying. I think my primary focus though is not on the amount of time it's taking the customers to pay, those kinds of things. To me, the initial risk is the fact that they have one customer that accounts for 55% of their business, and their top three customers are accounting for 72% of their revenue, right? So they have tremendously high customer concentrations, right? So which is the risk to me is that if they lose one of those companies, particularly their largest customer, um, they they could pretty much go out of business. Now the question becomes, is that necessarily a bad thing? And I guess to the extent that you have a really good relationship with that one customer, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Um, but it's not a position a company would want to be in. Now, I think the analysis shows that their average production utilization is 78%. So if 78% of their production capacity is generating 7 million in sales, then I would guess, it's like almost a 1-to-1. That additional 12% would generate about another 1.2 million in sales, 3 million, 1.2 to maybe 1.5 million in sales. So their total sales, if they were operating at 100% capacity, their total sales might be about 8 million, 8.3, and maybe 8.5 million, right? So even at that level, if they were to maximize their production utilization and get close to 100%, and assuming that their pricing stays where it is, those customers would still represent a relatively large percent of their sales. So it creates a kind of like unique situation for them, right? Because they need to back away from having that one customer account for such a large share of their revenues. But to do that, given their current production capacity, it's almost like they have to reduce the business with their large customer in order to accommodate bringing other customers on, in order to get to a point where that largest customer makes up, let's say, I don't know, 20%, 30% of their sales, which might not be a good thing for them to be in. Right now, you guys made a lot of interesting points that I generally tend to agree with, but I would say before I would sign up to them, I would need to know, okay, what is the company making concessions, right? Are their prices in line with their competitors, right? If their prices are in line with their competitors, then from a pricing standpoint, there's not a whole lot more they can do, right? Because, unless they can differentiate, right? And with 12%, with 78% production capacity utilization, they might be able to kind of like differentiate based on, quicker turnover, some other things, which might allow them to increase their prices. But if they can't differentiate themselves, then they have to go with market level pricing, right? So I don't know. It's an interesting situation. All right. They need to reduce that customer, but they don't have the capacity to really do much about it, because even if they take that additional 22% capacity, right? They might generate about another, let's say 2 million in sales. But even at that large customer will still account for, 40%, 35, 40% of sales, which is better than 50% or 55%, but it's still a significant amount. So I don't know. I guess, when I look at it, my thing would be, okay, let's try to broaden our customer base, right?
Yeah.
But we have to recognize that we're going to have to, over the short term, we're going to have to live with this one customer accounting for like 35, 40% of our sales, right? In order to get it much below that, we're going to have to give up sales to this large customer. And I don't know if I would want to do that, just to, give, unless I could flip out and get higher margins, sales, which could be a possibility.
Increase production.
But getting back to the payment terms, right? That's the other thing I would ask, and have to see what the market is bearing, right? Are my competitors giving these guys like 80 days, 75, 80 days to pay, right? Because if they are, then you're caught up in industry practices. All right. Now, there could be, things, I don't know what their payment terms are, but they could try to offer some payment terms. Like we talked about with one of the other clients we talked about a couple of weeks ago, maybe you could offer 2% 10 net 30, 2% 10 net whatever. I mean, just try to offer some kind of inducement to get people to pay faster. But I don't know.
BJ, what were you?
All I was saying is that you can look at what is it going to cost to increase production so that you're not stuck at a $10 million level if you don't have any other choice. And rather than say, I got to cut him back, how do we start to do multiple? How do we get new customers, products, and also look at what would it cost if we have to increase production so that we don't necessarily have to give up business. We might just be able to build the business. So you do
So
that as an
I think the balance sheet shows they have $1 million in equipment loans now.
Yeah, right.
Right. So they might have some additional borrowing capacity where they might be able to go out and buy some additional equipment. So yeah, I mean that's definitely an option for them to look at and say, okay, what type of investment would it take for us to increase our production capacity?
I think it's something that's at least worth looking at and figuring out, understanding how that would happen, because rather than saying, okay, well, the only way I can really do this is if I cut the other person back. It's kind of like going, wait, I'm really not ready to cut back his business. I really want to grow my business. I want to grow it in more ways than just having it with one client. And if that becomes, and it's not probably going to happen in the first year, but if that becomes something where you start to say, I need more production, that's an option. And you just want to build as many options for this company as you can, so they have the ability to get rid of the thing that is the hardest for them, which is, I have tremendous customer focus on one person or two or three people that are basically probably making this very difficult to negotiate a lot of different things. So, and we need to get out more information. We need to understand about what is the size of the customer that they have. How large is this business for their business? What is it that they're looking at? What does the rest of the market get? I mean, you brought up a number of good points just in terms of, what does the market take for this type of product?
Mhm.
What does it take in terms of payments? Because we're assuming that this is a really kind of wrong way to do business. Maybe this is what the industry does. I'd be surprised, but it's always a possibility. These are things you need to find out.
Well, I still think it goes back to like, I think it's a conversation that we don't know if the conversation has been had. We don't, we don't have that information. We don't know if,
No.
yeah, no. We don't know, and it didn't say how long this customer has been with them. It just says that it's a customer, that we don't know how long they've been with them. We don't know if it's 2 years or 20 years or how long have they been in business?
I don't know.
We'd have to find out.
But again, I think it's a partnership. It's a customer supplier relationship, and there's something amiss, and that it needs to be mended. It needs to be discussed, and I think that these two entities can work together to do some different stuff. And also the internal customer supplier relationships, those also need to be dealt with, because you can't have sales out there all by themselves without understanding what the impact is, who they should be targeting, why they should be targeting them, and understanding how to move forward in the market in order to help fix this in terms of, when you go out there, these are the terms that you need to negotiate. These are the ways that we, let people know that this is how we do business. Don't go out there just to make the sale and say, oh, but if you don't get the money, within, 30 days, it'll be all right. Because we got a customer that doesn't pay until whenever, Sales has to understand the importance, what are you supposed to go out there and say and not say? And everybody in the organization needs to understand, or bring to executive management, where are they going to break? What can they stand? Does executive management understand if they suppose between everybody in the organization, if they actually sat down and are having these conversations, they find out that we can actually go and talk to these people and tell them that we're not going to take anything. We're not going to continue our relationship because we're going to be absolutely okay. If they decide, oh, if we can't pay you late, then we're out. Suppose does executive management know what they can stand?
Yeah, and also, but what percent of this client's business is the business they're doing with this company? I mean, they may be looking at the same problem. They may be looking at this and going, we're really not in a position to negotiate. However, we can play it, or we can fake it, but we might not actually have it. But you need to know that. How big is that company?
That's a very good point.
You know, I mean, they might be in the position of saying, I can't afford to lose you as a manufacturer.
That's a very good
I
point.
don't know that, but they might be. They might be in the position of saying, hey, we could get rid of your business and it would make no difference.
Mm.
But then the people would need to know that too. These are all things that we need to understand so we can give the best idea, information as to how they should move forward.
And BJ,
Yeah.
they need to understand who their competitors are
Yeah.
in the area. Like, are you the only one?
Yeah.
Is there somebody else that these other folks can go to? And that's the importance of understanding what your competitors and what's going on in the market and whatnot. Is this another situation where they're just running and running and running and running? And somebody's out there going sell, 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 and people don't understand, what they should be selling and when they should be selling it and how they should be selling it.
Well, interestingly enough, they only have one salesperson.
Well,
It's part of the problem, but
that's part of the problem, right?
yeah, I mean, that doesn't help it, that's for sure.
Well, and is this salesperson good at business development, or is this person just a salesperson?
That's one of the questions you always ask. I think
Do
you
I?
get the question with
Kind of.
every
I
business
gotta
we
tell you,
look at.
Sidney, what's really interesting is they have one sales manager and one salesperson. That's a little unusual. They do have a sales manager.
Yeah, I don't see a salesperson though.
Well, you said a minute ago that they had one salesperson.
Yeah, that's the sales manager.
Oh, well, then that's simple.
Yeah,
Then he's it. I mean, he's not just a
yeah,
manager, he's a salesperson.
right. So, yeah, that's all I see is the sales manager. I don't see another salesperson. But
The company appears strong,
Yeah.
but they're highly exposed
yeah, they are.
in this, and this is a huge exposure. But I just want, again, you're right, I do say it a lot. Are people just running and running and running and not understanding what they can stand, what they can't stand, you know?
Well, I think it gets back to a point that we've made in some of our previous discussions, and that is that a lot of small business people um, they get caught, not that they get caught up, but they're just at a point in time where they're like, okay, how do I maintain where I am now? Right. We're surviving, right? Do I have the infrastructure? Do I have the team in place that can do all the things that we're saying they may need to do in order to move forward? Right. This company has a fairly, I'm not going to say large, but they have a fairly developed production staff. But their management staff is slim. They only have the sales manager, the operations manager, the sales manager, and the finance manager. All right. The finance manager is probably spending all of his time trying to figure out how to manage the cash flow versus the line of credit, versus paying all the expenses. The operations manager is spending all of their time trying to figure out how to schedule production when there's this one customer that's accounting for 55% of my production. So I'm generally set up for their product. I don't know, we don't know what the product diversity is, right? So I think, unfortunately, for a lot of small business folk, they don't have the staff that can sit back and do a lot of the things we're suggesting they do. And maybe they should call BJ, maybe they should call Deidre and say, hey, this is where I am, right? How do I move forward? Right? What do you look at where I am, look at my business, look at my staff, look at everything that's going on, and help me develop a plan, an action plan that's going to help me position this business in a way that it's sustainable over time, right? And then a big part of that is what can the business look like? What should it look like? Right? I mean, they're generating 7.5 million in sales, EBITDA 800,000. Yeah, their customers are paying in 83 days, but it doesn't seem like their cash flow combined with their line of credit is helping them survive, right? What should it look like, right? What you're sitting with the owner. What should it look like? Where do you say they should be?
Well, and what could it look like?
Yeah.
Because if you've got this large customer, and it does say it I see this in here, and maybe the sales manager, salesperson, whoever needs to be trained. Let's not say replace, let's say trained. Because it seems like they've got margin compression because the larger customers negotiate aggressively.
Yeah.
So that means that you've got somebody in there who's who can't or doesn't want to negotiate. They don't want to, what is that? This is all we're going to give you, and they're not going to give you any more. Well, are these the customers that you actually want? And if it takes, how long would it take for the salesperson, manager, to replace that revenue? Is it 6 months? Is it 2 years?
Yeah, because I think the thing that they can understand fairly easily is if that customer goes away, that $7.5 million a year is down to 3.3 million a year.
Can they handle that?
Can they deal with it? What would you do?
Right.
Legitimate question. What would you do if that happened? You have a production staff. What would you do with that? If your production went from 70 some odd percent to 35%, you'd have a serious problem there.
Yeah, and I mean, and it's like, okay, does that mean that somebody doesn't go to college, or does it mean that 15 people don't go to college?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just, there's a lot of things to look at, but I think one of the things for them to look at is what would happen under those circumstances. Because that's a rather dramatic change in business.
And if you're doing accurate and effective planning,
Yeah.
then you know the answer to that question every year.
Yeah.
If you're doing planning, you know what you can stand. You know what will break the proverbial camel's back.
And you're right. And if you're doing the planning, you really don't let yourself get into situations like this without knowing these things, without being fully aware of what you've done.
Well, if you look at their, pardon me, if you look at their operating costs, is about total operating cost is about 2.1 million. At their current margin levels of 36%, their break-even point is 5.8 million.
Right.
All right, so that's about 1.7 million less than what they're doing now. We said their largest customer is about 55%. So that's more than about three, $3.5 million they would lose if that customer walked away. So it would definitely put them below their break-even point, but they would only need about 2 million in additional sales to get back to their break-even point. Um, you know, how quickly could they add $2 million in sales? And would that additional $2 million in sales be at higher margins, which would mean they wouldn't have to add, 2 million in additional revenue. Maybe they only need to add 1.8 or 1.9 million in additional revenue if that new business has gross margins of, 40%, 42%, right? So this is a really interesting situation, right? Because, we don't know what the market is, right? We don't know that there could very well be some market segments where you can get 40% margins, 45% margins. And, maybe this company could possibly garner some of that business, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting.
It really is. It's very interesting because there could be the planning itself could bring you into new markets. It could bring you better receivables. It could bring you better markup. I mean, you could do a whole group of things there that would make this be a much more comfortable business. As it is, they're still making good money. The downside is that could end really quickly. And that's what you want to protect against, is to make sure that things like that don't happen.
And I would have to ask myself, why? This is kind of clandestine, cloak and dagger, but I'd have to ask myself, we're talking about packaging solutions, and you're selling packaging, and you got these aggressive. Maybe there's not just one aggressive. Maybe it's not this one. Are they reselling these solutions? Is that what is it possible that if you find out, that this major company is so aggressive because they're actually reselling your solutions, and you actually go out there and do some work and find out who they're reselling to, and you go and capture your market back?
Good point.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I would assume that
Everybody
the
is
customers,
up, the
based
up and
on
up.
what was presented was that their customers are food manufacturers and
Yeah.
people that actually use the product. So, I guess, yeah, their primary customers are food producers, consumer goods companies, and private label brands. So, I don't know. I would say that the largest customer is probably not someone that's like reselling
Yeah.
packaging material. But
That sales manager's got some work to do. And that sales manager in my organization has about a year to do it.
you're being kind of liberal.
And you're probably, yeah, I was gonna say 6 months, but you're talking about doing a complete market, overhaul, client overhaul, and that takes time and it takes finesse. And this person seems unable to even finesse someone into paying.
Well, it's normally not the salesperson's job to collect the money, right?
Yeah,
You
but
could
they
try
usually go to the
to.
salesperson. Accounts receivable usually goes to the salesperson to say, "Hey, what's up with your boy?" Right?
I mean, yeah. I mean, eventually you might try to ask the. So I worked in the credit department for a large company years ago. Years, long time ago. And I remember we would often, ask the sales manager, hey, or the salesperson who rep the company, hey, can you find out what's going on?
Mhm.
But it wasn't their job. It was their job to do it once we asked them to do it, but they weren't. The salesperson is not monitoring, monitoring that, right? So, but like you said, this customer is so large that it's almost like the sales manager must be an employee of that company, right? I mean, so that but yeah,
There might be that
this
part too.
yeah, this is interesting, and it always gets back to really just understanding where you are as a business, right? Where are you? Where you are, um, where are the opportunities, um, what is the market, right? What's the market? What are my competitors dealing with 83 days, collections? Um, it's you need to know all of that in order to come up with a fairly decent strategy, because the one thing you don't want to do is kind of like piss off this large customer and have them leave, right? You want to work that relationship, like you said. You want to try to finesse it and work it and see what's going on. But a lot of times you'll be restricted by what's happening in the marketplace. If your competitors are allowing people to pay in 83 days, why should anybody come to you and pay in, you know, 50 days, 60 days?
Because that's the way we run our business.
Yeah.
Well, you're not going to have much business.
I don't know. I'm just saying that's I think that's subjective. I'm just
What's
saying
subjective?
that you're not going to have much business.
No, it's not subjective. If the market is like people paying 82 days, the market, everything's the same, right? All things being equal, if all companies are accepting 82 days payables or payment
You're
in
right.
82 days,
You're right.
then you almost have to go for that, right? Which is why I was saying you have to figure out a way to differentiate, right? If there's a way to differentiate.
You're
It could
absolutely right.
be, it could be speedier delivery time. Hey, well, yeah, you can pay me in 82 days, but if you want this, in 2 weeks or whatever, right, then you have to pay a little more. Or it could be, I don't know if the production process is so in another life I had a coffee company, right, and we used to buy packaging materials, and it's the film that you go to a restaurant and you see the packets of coffee that they open up and empty into an urn or whatever.
Yeah.
We used to use that kind of packaging material,
Right.
and it was interestingly enough, I mean, there were some producers of that stuff that did a poor job with the glue, right, the sealing, right. So there were ways that manufacturers of that material could differentiate themselves, because some companies product was just really crappy, right, it didn't seal appropriately,
Mhm.
you know a lot of different issues.
Different different level, different degree of plastic. There's all kinds of things that people do with that.
Right.
I mean, different ways of dealing with it. It seems like it's the same, but it clearly is not.
Right. So it all gets back to knowing your market, knowing what the market's up to, right, and developing a plan of action centered around what you learn in the marketplace, right. um, so I don't know, I'm not sure, I can't think of much else. Companies, like, to me, the company's biggest issue was this very large customer, and the challenge of trying to reduce their reliance on this one large customer. um, Collection, 82 days, yeah, that's crazy, but something else you could work on, possibly offering terms, 2%, 10, do the analysis and see how much you could offer in terms of a discount to get paid in 20 days, 30 days. their inventory turnover is crazy too, right? It's like 83 days. I don't know. Resins aren't like computer chips. They don't change every 6 months, right? So do you really need to have that much inventory on hand? I don't know. There's some other things this company could look at, to help with uh, the issues. But
And they have like 2 people in warehouse and logistics, and with that much, they're probably struggling internally. It might not even there may be a percentage of that turnover that is just about chaos and inefficiency.
yeah. Well, I think we've had a really interesting and spirited discussion about this company's issues and problems. But I think we all agree that they need to do something about that one large customer, or at least trying to reduce their reliance on that one large customer by growing their customer base. But to do that, they need to figure out exactly, where they are. They have 12. They're operating at 78% production capacity, so they have about 22% that they can, add to. 22% of capacity they could add to their revenue base. But what else can they do, right? It's very important for them to go out and figure out exactly what's going on in their marketplace, so that they can make a reasoned decision. And I'm sure that they could also call BJ or call Deidre and say, "Hey, come on in and help me out." Um, so they can get some spirited advice on some of the things they might want to do to improve that situation.
Yeah,
So
we could have some planning meetings
yeah.
to make sure that the customers that they do bring on board, they don't duplicate the same behavior.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the best thing that they can do is to do this stuff now before they end up in a really hard situation. They're in a decent situation to do this from now.
Mm.
Could be in a much worse situation and they don't want to get there.
Right.
So
Now's the time to have those.
Start working on it, yeah.
Yeah, now's the time to have those customer supplier relationship management discussions.
Mm.
You're right. This would be a key time to do that
Yeah, it would be.
before we get. I love that. I love that.
Well, BJ and Deidre, I'd like to thank
Yes,
you guys
Sydney.
for taking the time to share your insights.
And you also, thank you.
I'd like to thank those listening for tuning in. Remember, if you're checking us out on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, like the video, and hit the notification bell so you'll get notified whenever we upload another podcast discussion of a business being discussed by 3 advisors. You've been listening to 3 Advisors in a Business. I'm Sidney Wayman here with BJ Handel and Deidre Mercedes. We'd like to thank you all for checking us out. Until next time, may wealth be yours. Thank you.
Wrap